Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery and watched the stars through the main window. 300 years had passed since humans first left Earth and spread across the galaxy. They had built colonies on distant worlds, and made trade routes between the stars. Jake had been exploring space for 20 years and had never seen anything like what appeared on his screens that morning. Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant looked up from her station with wide eyes. The readings on her computer showed something impossible. A fleet of ships was coming toward them, but these ships were not human. They moved in perfect formation, and their design was unlike anything humans had ever built. The ships looked like they were made of crystal and light. Jake called his crew to battle stations, but kept his voice calm. This was the moment humans had wondered about for centuries. They were about to meet aliens for the first time. He ordered his communications officer to send a peaceful greeting on all frequencies. The response came back in perfect English. The alien voice was smooth and musical. It spoke of peace and friendship. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony, and they had been waiting for humans to develop enough technology to join them among the stars. They wanted to meet face to face and share knowledge. Jake agreed to the meeting, even though his hand shook with excitement and fear. Ambassador Kyle Turner arrived on the Discovery 3 days later. He was Earth's best diplomat and spoke 7 human languages. Kyle had negotiated peace treaties between warring colonies and helped establish trade agreements across human space. If anyone could handle first contact with aliens, it was him. The meeting took place aboard the largest alien ship. It was bigger than any human city and seemed to float in space without any visible means of support. Kyle and his team put on their best uniforms and took a shuttle across the empty space between the ships. The alien ship's docking bay opened like a flower and pulled them inside without any mechanical arms or tractor beams. The aliens were tall and beautiful in a way that made humans feel small and primitive. Their skin was almost transparent, and light seemed to flow beneath it like water. They moved with perfect grace and spoke in voices that sounded like music. The leader introduced himself as Chancellor Vextal and welcomed the humans to what he called the Greater Galaxy. The alien ship was filled with wonders. Rooms that changed shape according to the thoughts of whoever entered them. Walls that showed star maps of the entire galaxy with thousands of civilizations marked in different colors. Gardens that grew in zero gravity with plants that sang when the wind touched them. Kyle and his team tried to hide their amazement, but the aliens seemed pleased by their wonder. Chancellor Vextal explained that the Hegemony was a peaceful confederation of advanced species. They had been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years and had helped many younger civilizations reach their full potential. Now they wanted to offer the same gift to humanity: advanced technology that could end disease and hunger, weapons that could protect human colonies from any threat, cities that could exist in the space between dimensions. Kyle asked many questions about how this partnership would work. The aliens were patient with his concerns and showed him records of other species they had helped. The evidence was impressive. Dead worlds brought back to life. Primitive civilizations given the tools to reach the stars. Wars ended before they could begin. But navigator Sam Rodriguez noticed something strange during the cultural exchange. He was studying the star charts the aliens had shared when he saw dozens of systems marked with symbols he did not understand. When he asked what the symbols meant, the aliens gave vague answers about natural disasters and civilizations that had failed to adapt to changing conditions. Sam kept his concerns to himself during the formal meetings, but he made secret copies of the star charts. Something about the pattern bothered him. The marked systems formed a clear path across the galaxy, like the trail of some vast predator moving from one hunting ground to another. The negotiations continued for 2 weeks. The aliens were generous with their offers and patient with human questions. They promised to share technology gradually so humans could adapt to it safely. They offered protection from the dangers that existed in the dark spaces between stars. They spoke of a future where humanity would take its place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. President Helen Clark arrived for the final ceremony. She had led Earth's government for 8 years and had always dreamed of the day when humans would meet other intelligent life. The signing took place in the alien ship's Grand Hall with representatives from both species watching. The preliminary accords were beautiful documents, written in both human languages and the flowing script of the Hegemony. But as the celebration continued, Sam Rodriguez sent an encrypted message to Admiral Rick Stone at Terran Defense Command. The message contained copies of the alien star charts and Sam's analysis of the strange symbols. He did not trust the aliens completely and wanted Earth's military leaders to have all the information before making any final decisions. The ceremony ended with promises of friendship and cooperation. The alien fleet departed with plans to return in 6 months with the first shipments of advanced technology. Jake Morrison watched them go and wondered if humanity had just taken its first step toward a golden age or made the worst mistake in human history. 6 months passed, and the aliens returned as promised. They brought gifts of technology and offers of friendship, but they also brought advisors who wanted to study human colonies and military bases. Mining supervisor Tony Blake worked on Kepler 442b, where humans dug valuable metals from the planet's crust. The hegemony advisors said they wanted to help improve mining efficiency, but Tony noticed they spent more time studying the security systems than the mining equipment. That advisors carried small devices that scanned everything they saw. They measured the strength of human weapons and counted the number of soldiers at each base. They asked detailed questions about human manufacturing and wanted to know how quickly humans could build new ships and weapons. Tony reported his concerns to his supervisors, but was told to cooperate fully with their alien guests. Marine Corps Intelligence Officer Kate Phillips escorted alien advisors during their visits to military installations. She had served in intelligence for 10 years and knew how to spot espionage when she saw it. The aliens were polite and friendly, but they asked too many specific questions about human defensive capabilities. They wanted to know about weapons, storage locations, and communication systems. They studied human soldiers and took detailed measurements of their equipment and vehicles. During one escort mission, Kate intercepted fragments of alien communications. The advisors were sending encrypted reports back to their ships using technology that human sensors could barely detect. She recorded everything she could and brought the data to computer specialist Ryan Webb, who worked in the cryptography division. Ryan had been breaking codes since he was a teenager. He understood that alien encryption would be nearly impossible to crack, but he noticed patterns in the signal timing that suggested the aliens were using mathematical principles similar to those used by humans. He worked for weeks trying to decode even small fragments of the alien communications. The breakthrough came when Ryan realized that the aliens were using prime number sequences as part of their encryption key. It was still incredibly complex, but it gave him a starting point. He managed to decode small pieces of the alien messages, and what he found made his blood run cold. The decoded fragments contained references to something called reclamation protocols and absorption procedures. There were mentions of genetic sampling and population control measures. The aliens were not just studying human technology, they were cataloging everything about human civilization as if they were preparing for conquest. Kate brought the evidence to her commanding officer, but was told that incomplete translations of alien communications were not enough to prove hostile intent. The official policy was still full cooperation with the hegemony. Kate knew she needed more evidence, but getting it would require taking serious risks. Dr. Nathan Price worked as a xenobiologist, studying samples of hegemony genetic material. The aliens had provided tissue samples as part of the scientific exchange program. Nathan had been excited to study the first alien DNA ever discovered, but what he found disturbed him deeply. The alien genetic code contained sequences from dozens of different species. It was as if the hegemony individuals were made up of pieces taken from many different life forms. Nathan had never seen anything like it in nature. The only explanation was that the aliens had somehow absorbed genetic material from other species and incorporated it into their own biology. Nathan ran more tests and found evidence of neural pathways that seemed designed to store and access memories that did not belong to the original alien consciousness. Each hegemony individual carried the knowledge and experiences of multiple species within their genetic structure. It was like a living library of conquered civilizations. Security Chief Amanda Cole managed safety at the joint research facilities that the aliens had established on human worlds. The facilities were supposed to be places where human and alien scientists worked together to develop new technologies. But Amanda noticed that the aliens spent most of their time scanning and recording everything about human biology and psychology. Alien researchers took genetic samples from human volunteers and subjected them to detailed psychological testing. They wanted to understand how humans thought and reacted under different types of stress. They studied human emotional responses and tested how humans responded to various forms of authority and control. Amanda tried to limit alien access to sensitive areas, but was overruled by government officials who wanted to maintain good relations with the hegemony. The aliens were given access to human genetic databases and psychological profiles of entire populations. They studied human weaknesses and strengths as if they were preparing a detailed invasion plan. Sam Rodriguez had been promoted to intelligence director after his concerns about the alien star charts proved to be justified. He had spent months analyzing the data and comparing it with historical records of civilizations that had disappeared without explanation. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Every civilization marked with the strange symbols on the alien charts had followed the same progression. First contact with the hegemony, a period of technological exchange and cooperation. Then complete disappearance from galactic communications. The hegemony had been moving across the galaxy for thousands of years, leaving empty worlds in their wake. Sam gathered all the evidence from Kate's intercepted communications, Nathan's genetic analysis, and Amanda's security reports. The picture that emerged was of a parasitic species that consumed other civilizations completely. They absorbed the knowledge, technology, and even the genetic heritage of their victims. The evidence was overwhelming but convincing. Earth's government would be difficult. The hegemony had been careful to maintain their friendly facade while secretly preparing for conquest. Many human leaders were already dependent on alien technology and unwilling to believe that their benefactors might be enemies. Sam knew he had to present the evidence carefully and completely. He prepared a detailed report that showed how the hegemony's pattern of behavior matched their actions on human worlds. The aliens were following the same script they had used to conquer hundreds of other species. President Helen Clark received Sam's report during a private briefing at the underground command center beneath the Capitol. She read through the evidence, with growing horror as she realized what humanity was facing. The aliens who had promised to guide humanity to a golden age were actually preparing to consume human civilization completely. The president faced an impossible decision. Confronting the hegemony directly would mean war against a technologically superior enemy, but continuing to cooperate would mean giving the aliens everything they needed to complete their conquest. Earth's military was no match for hegemony technology, but perhaps they could find a way to level the playing field, Clark authorized Sam to begin secret preparations for resistance while maintaining the appearance of cooperation with the hegemony. Human scientists would study alien technology for weaknesses while the military prepared defensive positions. It would be a desperate gamble, but humanity had no choice except to fight or be absorbed into the alien collective. The end of the charade came suddenly and without warning. Chancellor Vextal's ships appeared in Earth's solar system, carrying weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. His message was delivered to every human communication device simultaneously, and his voice had lost all pretense of friendship. The hegemony had detected human intelligence gathering activities, and the time for deception was over. Humanity had 72 hours to surrender completely or face what the Chancellor called reclamation protocols. Every human military unit would lay down their weapons. Every human colony would submit to immediate occupation. Every human leader would report to hegemony processing centers for absorption into the collective consciousness. Admiral Rick Stone had been preparing for this moment since Sam Rodriguez first sent him the alien star charts. Operation Defiance Stand went into effect immediately with coded transmissions sent to every human fleet and military installation across the galaxy. The orders were simple and desperate: scatter and hide while appearing to comply with alien demands. Make the enemy work for every victory. The hegemony demonstrated their power by selecting New Geneva as an example. The colony housed 50,000 Marines under Colonel P. Jackson, along with their families and support staff. It was a prosperous world with advanced defenses and early warning systems. None of that mattered when the alien planet killers arrived. The weapons fired from beyond the edge of the solar system and struck the planet's core with pinpoint accuracy. New Geneva died in minutes as its molten heart destabilized and tore the world apart from within. 50,000 human souls vanished in an instant, along with everything they had built over 3 generations of colonization. The message was received across human space. Resistance meant total annihilation. But Colonel Jackson's death also provided crucial intelligence that Chief Engineer Grace Murphy used to analyze the alien weapons. The energy signatures showed that hegemony technology relied on specific harmonic frequencies to maintain molecular cohesion. Disrupt those frequencies and even their most powerful weapons might fail. Grace worked frantically in her hidden laboratory on Europa while hegemony fleets moved to occupy major human worlds. She had only days to find a weakness in technology that was thousands of years more advanced than anything humans possessed. The math was complex, and the physics involved forces that human science barely understood. The official surrender came from Earth's government exactly 72 hours after the ultimatum. President Clark announced humanity's complete capitulation. in a broadcast that reached every human settlement. But the real message was hidden in the timing and phrasing of her words. Admiral Stone and his commanders recognized the coded signal to begin the Scorched Earth Protocol. Human colonies across the galaxy began their final preparations as hegemony occupation forces approached. Critical installations received demolition charges while irreplaceable knowledge was copied to hidden data caches. If humanity could not win, then they would ensure the aliens gained nothing valuable from their conquest. Guerrilla fighter Danny Carter led the first resistance operations on Mars when hegemony forces landed to secure the orbital shipyards. His team of 50 volunteers had spent weeks preparing ambush positions in the tunnels beneath the main industrial complex. They struck at night using improvised explosives and captured alien weapons. The attack succeeded beyond all expectations because the aliens had never faced asymmetric warfare. The hegemony expected conquered species to either surrender completely or fight conventional battles they could not win. They were not prepared for humans who refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Scientist Linda Shaw continued Grace Murphy's research from her laboratory hidden in the asteroid belt. She had samples of alien technology captured during Danny Carter's raids and access to the analysis of the New Geneva attack. The breakthrough came when she realized that human neural patterns were fundamentally different from anything the hegemony had encountered before. Every species, the aliens had absorbed shared certain basic thought patterns and emotional responses, but humans were chaotic and unpredictable in ways that made them immune to hegemony-controlled technology. The aliens could not read human minds or predict human behavior because human consciousness operated on principles that their collective intelligence could not process. This discovery changed everything. Linda realized that humanity's greatest weakness might actually be their greatest strength. Human unpredictability and emotional volatility made them impossible to control using the methods that had worked on hundreds of other species. That had hegemony forces completed their occupation of major human worlds, they found empty cities and abandoned installations. The humans had vanished into hidden bunkers and secret bases, leaving behind only destroyed equipment and useless facilities. The aliens had conquered human space, but captured nothing of value. Admiral Stone watched the occupation from his hidden command center in the outer system. The hegemony had expected to inherit a functioning human civilization, but instead found themselves occupying empty shells. Human resistance cells were already forming across the galaxy using pre-planned communication networks and hidden supply caches. The aliens began searching for human survivors with increasing frustration. Their sensors could detect human life signs, but the readings came from everywhere and nowhere. Humans had hidden themselves in asteroid mining tunnels and abandoned space stations. They lived in the gaps between inhabited systems and moved through space using routes that did not appear on any official charts. Danny Carter's success on Mars inspired similar operations across human space. Small teams of volunteers struck at hegemony installations using tactics that the aliens could not predict or counter. They destroyed alien equipment with simple explosives and captured advanced weapons that human scientists reverse-engineered in hidden laboratories. The hegemony began to realize that conquering humanity would not be as simple as absorbing other species. Humans refused to follow the expected patterns of behavior. They did not surrender when faced with superior force. They did not break when their leaders were captured. They adapted and fought back using methods that the alien collective consciousness could not comprehend. Chancellor Vexthal found himself facing something unprecedented in hegemony history, a species that became more dangerous when cornered rather than more compliant. Every brutal suppression tactic created more human resistance fighters instead of fewer. Every destroyed human settlement became a rallying point for revenge rather than a lesson in futility. The trap had been sprung, but it was not the trap the hegemony had expected. They had captured empty human worlds while the humans themselves melted away into the darkness between stars. The hunters had become the hunted, and the supposedly superior alien technology was being turned against its creators by primitive humans who refused to accept defeat. The war that the aliens thought would last weeks was just beginning, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what happened when someone pushed them too far. The hegemony had conquered over 200 species in their 1,000-year expansion across the galaxy, but they had never faced anything like humanity. Every other civilization had followed predictable patterns during conquest. Initial resistance, followed by gradual acceptance and finally complete integration into the collective consciousness. Humans refused to follow the script. Danny Carter's resistance cell on Mars had grown from 50 volunteers to over 500 survivors who emerged from hiding after the initial occupation. They moved through the underground tunnel networks that connected every major installation on the planet. The aliens controlled the surface, but the real Mars existed in the spaces they could not see or understand. The breakthrough came when Carter's team captured a hegemony command vehicle during a raid on their main base. Marine Sergeant Nicole Foster led the assault team that stormed the alien position using tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. They accepted massive casualties to achieve their objective because humans understood something the aliens did not. Sometimes winning required being willing to lose everything. The captured alien technology revealed crucial intelligence about hegemony weaknesses. Chief Engineer Grace Murphy analyzed the command systems and discovered that individual alien units had very limited autonomous capability. They operated as extensions of a central intelligence rather than independent entities. Disrupt their communications and they became confused and ineffective. Dr. Linda Shaw made an even more important discovery when she studied the alien neural interfaces found in the captured vehicle. Human brain patterns were completely incompatible with hegemony absorption technology. The aliens literally could not process human consciousness because it operated on fundamentally different principles than anything in their experience. Human creativity and adaptability exceeded anything the hegemony collective had encountered. While the aliens possessed superior technology, they thought in predetermined patterns that had worked for thousands of years. Human unpredictability became a strategic advantage because the collective intelligence could not predict or counter innovative tactics. Captain Jake Morrison's ship had survived the initial attacks by hiding in the debris field of a destroyed space station. His crew spent months modifying their vessel using salvaged alien technology and human engineering principles. The result was a hybrid ship that alien sensors could not properly identify or track. Morrison launched the first successful boarding action against a hegemony vessel when his modified ship approached an alien cruiser disguised as space debris. The assault team led by Sergeant Foster used improvised weapons and desperate courage to overwhelm the alien crew. The boarding action succeeded because the hegemony had never conceived that primitive humans would attempt to capture their advanced vessels. The captured cruiser provided invaluable intelligence about alien fleet movements and communication protocols. Morrison's crew discovered that hegemony forces were completely dependent on constant communication with their command hierarchy. Individual ships could not operate effectively when cut off from the collective consciousness. Weapons designer Paul Harris worked in a hidden facility built inside a hollowed-out asteroid to reverse engineer captured alien technology. His team included human engineers who had escaped from occupied worlds and alien defectors who had been captured during boarding actions. Together they created the first human-designed antimatter weapons. The new weapons were crude compared to hegemony technology, but they could be mass-produced using human industrial techniques. More importantly, they were designed using human principles that the aliens could not predict or counter. Harris created weapons that operated on chaos theory rather than precise mathematical calculations. Admiral Stone received reports from resistance cells across human space showing that the aliens were struggling to maintain control over their conquered territory. Hegemony forces were designed to occupy compliant populations, not fight ongoing guerrilla campaigns. Their technology was optimized for overwhelming initial assaults, not sustained occupation duties. The first major human counterattack came when Stone assembled a strike force using captured alien vessels and hybrid human ships. The target was a hegemony staging area in the Centauri system where the aliens were assembling forces for their next wave of conquests. The attack would use their own gravitational weapons against them. The strike force approached the staging area using captured alien identification codes and Morrison's knowledge of hegemony communication protocols. The aliens detected the approaching fleet but identified them as returning patrol vessels. By the time they realized the deception, it was too late to mount an effective defense. Stone's fleet turned the alien gravitational weapons against the staging area itself. The massive space station that served as the hegemony command center was torn apart by its own defensive systems. Thousands of alien vessels were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The survivors scattered in confusion because their command hierarchy had been eliminated. The victory proved that humanity could adapt alien technology and use it more effectively than its creators. Human engineers had modified the gravitational weapons to operate on principles that the hegemony collective had never considered. Chaos and unpredictability became force multipliers that gave humans advantages their enemies could not counter. News of the Centauri victory spread through human resistance networks across the galaxy. Morale soared as humans realized they could fight back effectively against supposedly superior alien technology. More importantly, the victory inspired other conquered species to begin their own resistance. Movements. Communication specialist Maria Torres worked to establish contact between scattered human resistance cells, using quantum-encrypted networks that remained invisible to hegemony sensors. Her breakthrough was adapting alien communication technology to operate on human principles of distributed command rather than centralized control. The new communication network allowed global coordination of resistance activities while remaining undetectable to alien monitoring systems. Human cells could share intelligence and coordinate attacks without revealing their locations or strength to enemy forces. The network grew stronger as more cells joined rather than becoming more vulnerable to detection. Major Beth Adams took command of resistance forces after Colonel Jackson's death at New Geneva. She had survived the destruction of 3 different colonies and understood that humans could not win by fighting the aliens on their terms. Instead, she developed new tactics based on human strengths rather than attempting to match alien capabilities. Adams created mobile strike forces that could appear anywhere in the galaxy with little warning. They used captured alien ships and human engineering to create vessels that were faster and more maneuverable than anything in the hegemony fleet. Most importantly, they operated independently without requiring constant communication with higher command. The aliens found themselves fighting a war unlike anything in their experience. Human forces struck without warning and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They used familial hegemony technology in ways the collective consciousness could not predict. They turned alien strengths into weaknesses and exploited vulnerabilities that the hegemony had never known existed. Chancellor Vextal faced reports of human victories across the galaxy with growing concern. The collective consciousness had never experienced failure on this scale. For the first time in hegemony history, they were losing a war against a supposedly inferior species. The unthinkable was becoming reality as humans proved they could not only resist absorption but actively fight back and win. Human resistance evolved from scattered guerrilla cells into a coordinated rebellion that spanned the entire galaxy. Communication specialist Maria Torres had created a quantum-encrypted network that connected thousands of resistance groups without revealing their locations to hegemony forces. The network operated on principles of distributed intelligence that the alien collective consciousness could not comprehend or infiltrate. The success at Centauri had proven that humans could defeat hegemony forces using their own technology against them, but Admiral Stone knew that isolated victories would not be enough to win the war. Humanity needed to go on the offensive and strike at the heart of alien power before the hegemony could adapt to human tactics. Engineer Grace Murphy led the development of the Prometheus drive in a hidden facility built inside a rogue planet. Drifting between star systems, her team reverse-engineered captured hegemony propulsion technology and redesigned it using human engineering principles. The result was a drive system that was slower than alien vessels, but far more maneuverable and nearly impossible to track. The new drive technology allowed human ships to appear and disappear like ghosts in space. Hegemony sensors were designed to track vessels that moved in predictable patterns using standard propulsion systems. Human ships using the Prometheus drive could change direction and velocity in ways that violated alien understanding of physics. Commander Steve Palmer led the first major fleet action using ships equipped with the new drive system. His target was a hegemony battle group that was moving to reinforce their positions in the outer colonies. Palmer's fleet of 30 captured and modified vessels attacked the alien formation using coordinated hit-and-run tactics. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the hegemony force. Palmer's ships struck from multiple directions simultaneously, then vanished before the aliens could coordinate their response. The key was human ability to function effectively with minimal coordination while hegemony forces became confused and ineffective when their command hierarchy was disrupted. Dr. Nathan Price made a breakthrough discovery that changed the entire strategic situation. His analysis of captured hegemony genetic material revealed that the aliens' absorption of conquered species had made them increasingly vulnerable to targeted biological warfare. Their hybrid nature was both their greatest strength and their fatal weakness. Price developed a genetically engineered virus that attacked the alien absorption mechanisms. The virus caused the stolen genetic material to become unstable and begin breaking down at the cellular level. Hegemony individuals exposed to the virus literally began dissolving as their borrowed capabilities failed and their consciousness fragmented. The biological weapon spread through hegemony populations faster than their medical technology could counter it. Alien forces across the galaxy began experiencing system failures as their absorbed knowledge became unreliable. Ships crashed when their pilots forgot how to fly. Weapons malfunctioned when their operators lost access to technical knowledge they had stolen from conquered species. News of human victories began reaching other species that had been absorbed into the hegemony collective. The Zalani, who had been conquered 300 years earlier, began showing signs of independent thought for the first time in centuries. The Korth mining slaves in the asteroid belts started sabotaging their equipment and attacking their overseers. Resistance movements erupted on dozens of worlds that the hegemony had considered permanently pacified. Species that had been thought extinct for generations emerged from hidden refuges, where they had maintained their independence for centuries. The galaxy-spanning empire that had seemed invincible began showing cracks as suppressed civilizations remembered what freedom felt like. Captain Morrison launched deep reconnaissance missions into hegemony core territory using his hybrid vessel and crew of volunteers. These missions provided crucial intelligence about alien defensive positions and revealed that the core worlds were far less heavily defended than expected. The hegemony had never conceived that anyone would dare attack their home systems. The intelligence gathered by Morrison's team revealed that the alien empire was far more fragile than it appeared. The core worlds depended completely on resources and labor extracted from conquered territories. Without constant tribute from subject species, the hegemony infrastructure would collapse within months. Danny Carter had evolved from a simple guerrilla fighter into a strategic commander coordinating resistance activities across multiple star systems. His network of cells had grown to include thousands of humans and increasing numbers of alien defectors who had broken free from the collective consciousness. Carter's forces began targeting hegemony supply lines and communication networks. With increasing effectiveness, they destroyed alien resource extraction facilities and liberated labor camps where conquered species were forced to work. Each successful operation freed more potential allies and denied the aliens crucial resources. Major Beth Adams received authorization from Admiral Stone to begin Phase 2 of the human counter-offensive. Her mobile strike forces would begin hitting hegemony core systems while Price's biological weapon continued to weaken alien defenses. The goal was to force the aliens into a defensive posture while liberated species joined the growing rebellion. The first attacks on hegemony core systems succeeded beyond all expectations. Human forces appeared in star systems that had not seen combat for thousands of years and struck at targets the aliens had never bothered to defend. Ancient alien cities burned as human weapons turned their own defensive systems against them. Chancellor Vextal faced something unprecedented in hegemony history. The collective consciousness was fragmenting as absorbed species began reasserting their independence. The biological weapon was causing system-wide failures across the empire. Most terrifying of all, the humans were no longer simply resisting conquest but actively liberating other species. The Chancellor convened an emergency session of the hegemony High Command but found that many of his subordinates were showing signs of independent thought as their absorbed capabilities became unreliable. Some suggested negotiating with the humans while others proposed using killer weapons to sterilize all human worlds. But the humans had already proven that they could not be controlled or absorbed. Negotiation would only give them time to grow stronger while genocide would turn every species in the galaxy against the hegemony. For the first time in their thousand-year history, the aliens faced an enemy they could not defeat using their traditional methods. Dr. Price's virus continued to spread through hegemony populations, causing increasing chaos in their command structure. Alien fleets began operating independently as their crews lost the ability to communicate effectively with higher command. Some units attempted to surrender while others fled toward the galactic rim, seeking to escape the growing rebellion. Stone prepared for the final phase of Operation Retribution, as human forces consolidated their gains and prepared for the assault on the hegemony capital worlds. The aliens who had seemed invincible just months earlier were now retreating on all fronts as their empire collapsed from within. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for a millennium was discovering what happened when they pushed humanity too far. Humans did not simply fight back, they inspired others to fight back as well, and together they would tear down an empire that had seemed eternal. The final confrontation came when Chancellor Vextol transmitted a desperate offer of negotiation to human forces across the galaxy. The hegemony was willing to withdraw from human space and recognize humanity as an independent species in exchange for an end to hostilities. The offer included advanced technology and territorial concessions that would have made humanity a major galactic power. President Helen Clark received the alien proposal in her hidden command bunker and considered it carefully. The offer was generous beyond anything the hegemony had ever granted to any species. But Clark remembered the 50,000 dead at New Geneva and the hundreds of other worlds that had been cleansed by alien weapons. Some crimes could not be forgiven with simple withdrawal. Clark's response was broadcast across the galaxy on every communication frequency. Her words were simple and direct. Humanity would accept nothing less than the complete liberation of every species the hegemony had enslaved, and the dismantling of their empire. The aliens who had wanted to absorb humanity would instead face the full fury of human determination. Stone launched Operation Retribution with coordinated assaults on every major hegemony installation in the galaxy. Human fleets equipped with Prometheus drives and armed with captured alien weapons struck simultaneously at targets separated by thousands of light years. The attacks succeeded because humans had learned to turn hegemony advantages into fatal weaknesses. The assault on the hegemony capital system was led by Captain Morrison, aboard his hybrid vessel, accompanied by a fleet of captured alien ships crewed by human volunteers. They penetrated defenses that had never been breached in the aliens' thousand-year history by using tactics the collective consciousness could not predict or counter. Morrison's boarding parties included former resistance fighters like Danny Carter and Sergeant Nicole Foster, along with liberated aliens who had broken free from the collective consciousness. They fought through the corridors of hegemony, command ships using improvised weapons and desperate courage against enemies who had forgotten how to think independently. The turning point came when human forces captured Chancellor Vextel himself. During the assault on the primary command vessel, instead of executing the alien leader, Admiral Stone made a different choice. He forced Vextel to witness the liberation of every world that hegemony had conquered over the past millennium. World after world broke free from alien control as Dr. Price's biological weapon continued to spread through hegemony populations. The virus caused their absorption capabilities to fail, which meant they could no longer maintain control over conquered species. Ancient civilizations thought extinct for centuries emerged from hidden refuges, while others shook off generations of alien domination. The Zelani reclaimed their homeworld and immediately began hunting down their former oppressors. The Korth established a new government and started rebuilding their industrial capacity. Dozens of other species declared independence and began forming alliances with humanity and each other. Chief Engineer Grace Murphy worked with liberated alien scientists to develop new technologies that combined the best of human creativity with alien knowledge. But these advances were shared freely among all species rather than hoarded by a single empire. The goal was cooperation and mutual benefit rather than conquest and absorption. The hegemony fleet began disintegrating as individual ships lost contact with the collective consciousness. Some alien crews attempted to surrender while others fled toward unexplored regions of the galaxy. Many simply shut down their ships and waited for rescue as their ability to function independently failed completely. Chancellor Vextel watched his empire collapse with something approaching human emotion as the biological weapon continued to break down his absorption capabilities. For the first time in centuries, he experienced independent thought and began to understand the horror of what the hegemony had done to countless civilizations. The final battle took place in the hegemony core system, where the last loyal alien forces made their stand around the primary world. Human fleets led by Admiral Stone and liberated alien forces, commanded by their own leaders, converged on the system in the largest space battle in galactic history. The battle was won not through superior firepower but through superior coordination and creativity. Human forces used chaos theory and unpredictable tactics while their alien allies contributed knowledge and technology that the hegemony could no longer access effectively. The collective consciousness that had once seemed invincible shattered under the assault of free minds working together. The war ended not with a surrender document but with the complete dissolution of the hegemony as a political entity. Chancellor Vextel and the surviving alien leadership were placed in medical facilities where human and alien doctors worked to help them recover. their individual identities after centuries of collective existence. President Clark faced the most important decision in human history as representatives from dozens of liberated species gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. Humanity could have claimed dominance over the former hegemony territory and established themselves as the new galactic empire. The military strength and technological advantages were certainly available. Instead, Clark proposed the creation of the Free Worlds Coalition based on principles of voluntary association and mutual defense. Each species would maintain complete sovereignty over their own territory while contributing to a shared defense network that would prevent any future empire from threatening galactic freedom. The proposal was accepted unanimously by all liberated species. A coalition charter was signed in a ceremony held on the former hegemony capital world, which was renamed Liberation in honor of all the species that had fought for their freedom. The document established principles of cooperation rather than conquest, and mutual aid rather than exploitation. Danny Carter was chosen as Earth's first galactic ambassador to the new coalition. His experience as a resistance fighter gave him credibility with liberation movements across the galaxy, while his leadership skills made him an effective diplomatic representative. When asked by reporters how humanity had managed to defeat the seemingly invincible hegemony, his answer became famous throughout known space. Carter looked directly into the cameras and spoke with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the worst the galaxy could offer and refused to surrender. His words were broadcast to every world in coalition space and became the unofficial motto of the new galactic order. The species that had refused to be conquered had become the foundation for a new age of galactic civilization. Human unpredictability and determination had broken an empire that had lasted for millennia and inspired dozens of other species to reclaim their freedom. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear and absorption, but by cooperation and mutual respect. In the years that followed, humanity's reputation spread to the farthest reaches of known space. They were the species that had pushed back when pushed too far, and their example inspired others to resist oppression wherever it appeared. The Free Worlds Coalition grew stronger each year as more species chose freedom over security and cooperation over conquest. The hegemony became a cautionary tale told to young beings across the galaxy about the dangers of believing that might makes right. But humanity became something else entirely. They became the proof that even the smallest and most primitive species could change the course of galactic history if they refused to give up and were willing to fight for what they believed in.